Hi, everyone. I would like to introduce our next speaker for the hour, Nicholas Shepard, with Open Access to AI. Nicholas Shepard of Kendrick OS is a veteran tech founder with the experience in building partnerships across industries. He's a multiple-time CEO and serial entrepreneur, building a combined $250 million in equity for the last 18 years. He is an industry mentor for the National Science Foundations and a technology reviewer for NASA. Kindred OS envisions the boundless potential of AI and eagerly anticipates its transformative impact on our society. Their primary product is a tablet that is enabled by an AI operating system called Zephy, with a focus in providing tools for education and upskilling general imagery and videos, and provide a performative for other software or apps with a generative AI focus to integrate with, including mobility, logistics, and healthcare and communication. Unlike traditional software, our system does not rely on internet connectivity. Instead, we employ smaller local models, steering away from the sprawling language models in favor of a mission-focused AI system. While it may not possess the same breadth, it boasts unparalleled depth in achieving specific goals or tasks. Nicholas also has a payload going up to the ISS in a couple months. So here he is.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. I want to start by saying you are a fantastic audience, and to reward you for being here on the last day of the last speech in this auditorium, I'm going to give you the opportunity for each one of you to be a multi-millionaire.
Yes.
That's right. So right now, I want to tell you, I am knowledgeable enough to be dangerous, but I don't see myself as a technical person. I'm a financial person. And I want to talk to you guys about something that is very important to you, and that is mind on your money, right? Personal wealth. And how does AI make that work for you? So let me start by saying, because we are here in the Space and Rocket Center, how much money in 13 years was invested in the moon landing? Does anyone know? Just feel free to shout it out. Big guesses. It's what? It's $288.1 billion. That's in modern day dollars. What's with inflation. To date, how much has been invested in AI? $420 billion. And that's in 5 years, as opposed to 13. So this is the moonshot of our generation. This is something that we collectively, as a people, have said, this is pretty powerful. To give you that an example, anyone here familiar with intuitive machines landing on the moon yesterday? Right? That was around $118 million. To put that into scope, if we invested into moon landings the same way we invest into AI, that would be 3,500 moon landings. I'm tired just thinking about that. But it's exciting. Here's another thing I think you guys should be pretty excited about. How many of you would like a better work-life balance? Yeah. On average, 75 to 87% of people want more flexibility in their careers. So without further ado, I think I want to kind of set you up with that, because I want to say, got to bring this with me. I want to kind of give that to you because that's going to help the rest of this make a heck of a lot more sense. So for those of you who are old enough to understand this Easter egg, I called it Enabling the Promise of the American Dream, or How I Stopped Fearing AI and Learned to Love the New American Renaissance. And that's what we are in. Should we be scared? Maybe. But is AI taking over? That's why you're all here today. And it's not because you are worried about Terminator breaking into your living room. Maybe you are. But you're worried about your personal wealth. Am I going to have a job? Am I going to have a place in society? How am I going to define my value as a person? These are all important questions. It's how we redefine ourselves. Right now, we are in wave one, algorithmic AI. The idea that an AI is disembodied, it's in a computer. We're heading into wave two, embodied AI, humanoid AI. If you're not scared about that, you should be. They're producing 4 million new humanoid robots yearly. 4 million new humanoid robots with LLMs. That's incredible. So we have to come with this question is, even with a 20 to 30% reduction in workforce, which would not be major with redundancy, it'll be devastating to our economy. Really will be. And it's not a new question. Everyone's like, oh, they just sprung this on us. No, the first science fiction movie ever made was about AI replacing human jobs. It's in German. And it's just been around. So those who know me, I'm a bit of a jokester and prankster. And when I got access to the early image to text editors, I asked this prompt: what would Easter look like in 30 years? Okay, now I'm getting worried. So they fixed that, but yeah. Anyways, moving along. So why listen to this kooky guy on stage? Well, I'm on stage and I have a microphone and you don't. So there you go. But more than that, I've built $250 million in equity over the last 18 years. I have helped groups understand entrepreneurship, building companies, growing companies, raising money for all of my adult life. It's pretty much the only thing I'm good at anymore. It sure isn't making mac and cheese. The follow-on to this is I'm also a consultant with NASA, and I am an I-Corps mentor for the National Science Foundation. So the question is this new? And it's not. We have faced this problem before. We don't remember it. And people are going to argue, what about the internet? Well, the internet didn't really create a vast scale technological change in how we live and operate our lives. But electricity did. Old jobs will be replaced by new jobs and new income. We are in the middle of the great upskilling. I want to really emphasize that. All of you who want a job today will have a job tomorrow. It will be a painful process. You will learn new skills, new abilities, new knowledge. The fact that you are here today is said that you're ready to embark on that journey. And I applaud all of you right now. Because accepting and acknowledging change is the hardest thing for any person. What do we see as a scope of value? Well, we're seeing a 10x increase in productivity if you have the right skills-based learning with augmented AI. That's huge. I don't know how many people in this auditorium, by rough count, maybe 30 to 40. You now have the workforce of 400 individuals. Wow, that's powerful. That means that we're gonna see a real change towards knowledge-based capability, which means education is not gonna mean as much as it used to be. But that's okay. We want a meritocracy. We want to achieve ourselves. The pursuit of happiness is offered to us in our Constitution. No one really knows what that means because we didn't know how to define it. It's that you have the right to go find it. So what did I decide? Well, I decided that 3 or 4 companies deciding whether or not we have that right to pursue wealth is not a good thing for us. So I worked with the World Council of Mayors, a political advocacy group, and we said, let's make artificial intelligence a right. And we succeeded. And they're moving forward politically to lobby for each one of you having the basic right to have access to an AI model to increase your wealth capacity, enable your lives to new heights, and pursue that dream of happiness. Why is this the new American Renaissance? Well, I always like to make good on promises I make. This isn't a promise, but I like to make good on what I say. Idea plus human capital, strength, work, equals opportunity and business. What we did is we engaged in a thought experiment. Could we use artificial intelligence to build businesses? We succeeded. We built 250 different business models in 3 months using artificial intelligence. Each one of those business models, if you go to Generator, Techstars, or Y Combinator, they will give you a par value for your company of $1 million. And if it's very good, $2 million. So all you need to do right now is say, what's my dream? And that's really the challenge we have to face. Because we can give AI identity disorder. We can say, I want you to be my chief technologist. I want you to be my marketing director. I want you to be my accountant. And all the different roles. Are they going to do it as well as a human person? No, they are not. What we're really saying is smaller teams are now able to compete on a bigger level, which makes the idea of grassroots entrepreneurship and market expansion much more achievable. And that's why I wanted to give everyone excited, because this is actually more in line of how a capitalistic society has run. A lot of very skilled people working with a lot of other very skilled people to create a work-life flexibility to create personal wealth. Where do we think that goes? I don't have the answers, but these are some of the ideas that we've come up with. Are we going to see a more democratized industry where bigger, classically less available opportunities and hardware suddenly becomes more easy and more accessible? So enabling the dream. I don't know what that dream is, but you do. Lifestyle businesses. Man, everyone's got a hot sauce recipe or something magical they love to bring. I know it. I see in the smiles in the audiences right now. They know what I'm talking about. What if you could use your AI team to make that a brand and create yourself an income? That's powerful. And compete on a much larger scale. We're not going to get rid of influencers, marketers, and creatives, because I think what was said very well is when AI tries to do something creative, it sucks. When people use AI to make something creative, it becomes beautiful, right? I want you to think of AI as replacing a handsaw with a circular saw. It is not going to change that you're sawing something. It's making it more easy, effective, and requiring you less individualized skills to make that happen. This one I get very excited about. What can't AI do for us? AI cannot give us our sense of community. Reconnecting with each other in a real and dynamic way is becoming more and more important. And we're going to see more and more businesses geared to how to make that happen. And then this is the one that we really have to ask ourselves. If we're working less and we're focused on our lives more, how do we redefine personal fulfillment? And can we find new opportunities and reconnecting with ourselves, our families, and our communities? I don't know about you, that doesn't scare me, that makes me excited. I am Kindred OS. We work with AI business consulting, AI advocacy and ethical practices, and working on AI-enabled smart tablets and applications to make all of this happen for you. I kept this presentation short because I already see the questions in the audience, and what I want is this to be a great public forum. So let's open it up there.
You mentioned that you felt like it's a right to have access to AI. What are the tools that you think are, or that are open access that you think we should all be utilizing?
And that's the problem right there. So when someone said, well, I can just use ChatGPT, I got it for free, right? And the thing I've learned the most is the free meal is the most expensive. The realization is that when you're working with ChatGPT, you are the product. They're harvesting your knowledge, your ability, and your questions to improve their model. So what we're trying to do is create a non-SaaS service. There are open source models via Hugging Face. If you are willing to accept that it's not going to be as good as ChatGPT, but it'll be yours, your data will be private, and you'll have the opportunity to engage with it in a dynamic way. So we are working on making that more available on the technical side. Personally, it depends on what you're looking for. Claude has tried to be more ethical. I don't know if they are hitting their mark. I feel like Google is moving pretty well in that category, but they have some serious hallucination problems, and they have been in the news recently because of them, and I encourage you to look that up. Minstrel is a non-guide rail AI, and I would highly recommend that you look into that. And again, my goal here today is not to finish the conversation, but start one. And we can help you guide through some of these opportunities.
Can you talk a little bit about your AI-enabled smart tablets and what you're trying to do with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're trying to do is build a system that is built ethically, which means that we're using non-copyrighted or protected data that's open source, build a model around that works locally without access to the internet, and use that and wrap it in a tablet form. And we're gonna charge $175 for that tablet, full stop. And that becomes your tablet and gives you access to all of the information you would need. We're also looking to operate that with a series of preloaded and side-loaded data packages based on your data. We don't have access to that, you load it on there. In doing so, we never gain access to your local files, and the AI itself is trained specifically on what you want it to do. And then we do that in full compliance with the executive order that was signed. So our hope with that is that we're gonna allow people to train that AI and create a personal brand. So instead of going to ChatGPT or having to go to Claude or having to go to Minstrel, you can go to ours, and that will be trained off of you. So it gets better, it allows you to increase your workflow, and allows to keep your information private to you. So that's some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. We have a long road, we're not gonna mislead on that, but what we have done in our working models has already been very, very interesting.
We were talking a little beforehand about some of the, this is all relatively new technology. It's not, but it is into the kind of common parlance that we're all hearing it all these days. Colleges aren't teaching this in fields that are going to be highly affected by this, such as communications, marketing, that sort of thing. How do we put this more into the mainstream in terms of understanding? Because so many people just believe what they see. Mm-hmm. How do we counter this? How do we make sure our education systems are really addressing this in the way they need to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, I think our education system is trying to deal with AI in a totally wrong way. They've put their head into the soil in a way because they don't know how to necessarily address this very fast-moving, complex technology. Recently, I was talking, I think this is a good point of this conversation, is that a gal was accused of cheating because she was using Grammarly to fix her essay. And the multiple layers of that is that, was she cheating because they added those AI features on what was a spell check software? So was she at fault for that? The second part of this is, if you run, and I'm sorry not to advocate, and I see a lot of younger people in this audience, so I apologize. If you run an AI text through another AI text, it totally obfuscates any algorithmic exchange. That means it's untraceable. So that's very easy to do. Now my question comes, if you're an educator and you have no effective tool to understand if this was a good essay from a good student or an AI written essay from a student who was using it to help their language or their capability, or I was drunk and I really needed an essay this morning, you will have no way of knowing. The challenge becomes in this, I'm making a judgment call on you as a person. Does this person really look like he could write or she could write like that? That is the kind of dangerous bias that we enter into with this system. And I don't know if we've effectively tackled that. However, what we can do is we can teach, like I said, like a reciprocal saw, how to do better prompts. Everyone here has a voice. Every one of these voices needs to be heard. And just because you can't articulate it in such a way that people could see it in a compelling way, doesn't mean that you are a bad writer. There are great writers who are bad storytellers. There are great storytellers who are bad writers. AI should help those stories become better. So if you're an educator or you're trying to get into education or you're trying to teach people, prompt engineering, prompt libraries, and education on how to use tools is going to be far more effective because you're trying to fight an overwhelming tide, and there's no way to beat that. So.
So how are you training these AIs on only given data to it? How are you getting enough data to train AI on data that is only given, like with permission to use for AI? Because that's the problem that we've seen with ChatGPT and all those other things, is they say that they cannot get enough data to train that has been explicitly given for the permission of training. So they're scraping it off everywhere on the internet, and it's causing a lot of copyright issues because it's coming off of that. So what's your model for doing that?
So that's a great question. How are we able to create an effective model without encroaching on individuals' privacy and data? Well, We'll start with, we use an open source database, stuff that has been readily submitted. Now, does that mean that this model is better than other models? No, it's not. It's breadth. It's a liberal arts education for AI. What we want you to do is you add the depth to the model. And how we would like you to do that is by side-loading your localized files. We don't have access to those. You have access to those. So if you are a computer engineer and you write code, that's your file database. If you're a marketing person, that's your database. If you love hot sauce, that's my database. I believe strongly that we can overcome some of the hurdles of the large language model by having more focused models, and how we tackle those focused models is through individuality, what makes all of us in this room special. Now, someone, and a lot of people actually have asked me this, how do I profit from this? Well, you might find that over a period of time, your AI takes on the brand of all the data you collected. Now, I have to ask you, what if there's a marketplace to create a realistic version of yourself that others could buy of that? I believe that's the future of where this marketplace is going to go. So I'm going to single out one of my friends, and he knows a famous rapper. And I love this story because he's texting, and the rapper says, "There is no darn way," and I'm going to clean this up for a little here, that this frickin' AI can bring the poetry into this rap. And so my friend does it. He sends it to him. He says, "That's garbage, man." And the guy says, "Okay, give me one more try." So he does it again with slightly better prompt. He waits 5 minutes. Suddenly gets a text back. "Do one more." So he does the third one. "Oh, shoot, man, I would actually say that. I'm going to go down to the studio." Right? These models do get better. They learn from you. And that's the important part, is we want to embrace that learning algorithm to create something in that brand. Now imagine that artist using that brand and licensing it out, where we could have access to all of his songs, but paying him the royalties that took him a lifetime to create. I think that's where we're really focusing on, is smaller, more directed models, secure data, locally sourced, and creating systems to protect you as an individual and you as your brand. Well, do I see there's still going to be big models in the future? Yeah, absolutely. Do we need them to write LinkedIn posts for us? No. We can find other ways to making that happen.
Okay, just following on that.
Yeah.
So how does that not replace this creative?
Well, see, the problem with this particular story is that it was so good at getting his identity and brand was because it was stealing his data, right? And when you're the only voice in the room, it's real easy for you to be that person. What we're really hoping for here is to create an alternative for that user to not only sue the crap out of that company, please do, and then secondly, use that data on his own AI and then expand his brand. I don't know about you, but I have an idea of Tupac and Paul McCartney collaborating on a new album. It could be kind of cool, or it could be absolutely terrible, but I'm excited to hear it out. This could create a whole new opportunity for these artists if they are willing to join that revolution, and that should be their choice, not ours.
I'd like to go back to the piece on education. I've heard through multiple speakers that you've covered it here a little bit about what, are we going to lose jobs? Jobs are going to change. And yes, this is nothing new. But going back to that specific example, I don't know the details, but I have heard the story about that young lady that was accused of cheating using Grammarly. Has anybody asked the question why she was asked to do an essay? Historically, we would know, well, yeah, this there to validate and prove that she has been trained, she properly understands the topic, et cetera, et cetera. But are we, from an educational perspective, is there another way to accomplish that? I have been hearing, similar to her questions and concerns, about marketing, comms, writing, all that stuff, but are we really looking at the right output here, the right value statement for what we're trying to accomplish, especially from an educational perspective?
So I heard that they're going to release, no, just kidding. No, you're absolutely right? The idea of rote resuscitation in a generative AI era, I don't see it. But I think it starts with small steps. The question is, to my mind, could they not make an AI analog, give it a prompt, teach me about the American Revolution as if I was a soldier in the American Revolution, and then have it and the student interacted with it dynamically by asking it questions and exploring events and important situations. These things are all realistic. And if you add an image generator, oh my gosh, what a crazy idea that could be. And that's really what I want to get at. It's not that we aren't opening a whole world of wonderful opportunities, but we have to start by being willing to open that door and engage with this a dynamic way. So I like your question, and I agree with you. I think that the idea of the essay may be forgotten, but also I want to final that thought is what happens to us as a people when we forget how to critically think and write essays. So these are difficult challenges that I'm not able to answer today, but I think these are questions that we're going to have to tackle as a civilization.
Hi. Is it working? Oh, there. I'm curious, this whole idea of your own customized set of data, training your own model on a tablet that you've provided so there's no connection at all to your data. I like it. I like the idea of specificity of AI models. However, it seems that if you don't have a lot of data, that's a limiting factor. And those individuals or entities that do have more data than most will wind up creating the best AI brands, so to speak, and the most useful models. How do you counter having not enough data?
Wow. I love that question in every way. So I guess the question I'm going to come back to is, in this case, is bigger better? I believe strongly that we could create a model so wonderful and so big that it might replace us altogether. I'm not particularly excited about that. I think we found a point where we have classically trained ourselves that the new gadget is always going to be a benefit to our lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. It has generally brought us to new and very interesting places. But that has not always been a good thing. I think maybe this is a situation where we have to follow what Europe and parts of the Asia have done in saying, we don't want a model bigger than 35 billion parameters. I mean, it's still going to teach me between a high school history class and be able to code a robot. Do I need it to get to the point where we start having to have serious discussions about it becoming its own intelligence? Or get to the point where it doesn't need us at all? I think that's something that is plaguing our litigators. I think that's something that us as a people have to decide, that maybe better is no longer better, and that maybe we have to figure out that these smaller models are the best way to make sure that the user and the human element is able to maintain our position and our lives. So I'm kind of getting lost in that, but does that kind of help? Is that moving? And actually, one of the presenters yesterday I thought was doing a wonderful job, is that they've had multiple issues with putting more AI into chat, or more data in ChatGPT, and was actually going backwards. It was getting less intelligent. So is it the right data? Is it good data? And is it data important to you? I think these might be better questions. I don't know.
Yes, hi. Actually, I want to add on to what the previous asker said. I guess, so I'm actually working with Rasa, which is an open source technology that you can create chatbots locally. And who I work with, they don't want their information out there, so
Yep.
we have like strict rules that tell us we can't use ChatGPT and things like that. But I've been trying to use our information locally, and even though we have a pretty decent amount of information, it's still small, like a smaller set than, say, obviously OpenAI is huge. And what I've come to find is that obviously with AI, it learns with repetition. So I guess my question is, technically speaking, how are you? I know, I feel like she already asked that, but like technically speaking, how is Kindred OS going to? How is it going to use this smaller set to provide answers? Like, say, if you want to use a chatbot, how is it going to provide answers that will provide actual worth? Because when I use the smaller data set, I'll get just repetitive answers, sometimes answers that don't make sense. It's just very difficult to get value out of a smaller set. So, yeah.
We're figuring it out. I don't have a good answer for you on that. We're learning with you on how to do this better. We have seen with smaller sets, again, not one of the examples, and again, I'm not a technical person for this one, is that we've seen with one of the earlier presenters, he was using as little as 400 pictures of pneumonia to train a AI bot on detecting pneumonia. I think my question is, in my mind, where I'm seeing more challenges is not as much as the size of the data packets, is the data in those packets worth looking at, right? If you've got bad data, and we're getting increasingly worse data because we are using all of these chatbots, and then we're using the Scrum from open sources that have not really been vetted to create more data that is equally bad. We could be creating this echo cycle, and we have created this echo cycle. And that's why I think creating data sets and creating accurate data for smaller models to train on and integrate is going to be one of the fastest growing opportunities in a new economy. So again, like I said, I'd be lying to you if I said I had all the answers, but we have seen the power of using a smaller data set in combination with a broad trained model, as long as the data is deep enough to reference. So that's just personally and and from my own experience. So right now, we're using available models because I don't have that kind of cookie dukes processing power. As we are continuing to grow this and getting more and more investment, we're looking towards making more and more refined models. And actually being here at this conference has helped us move forward in that goal. So we're like any product. We're starting very, very crawl, walk, run, right? This is our crawl, and now we're moving to walk.
So, and would you tell us what those are that you're using, or is that proprietary?
No, absolutely. So one what we really liked to start with was the Falcon model, because it was open source and it was available. We've looked at the other ones, such as Orca and Llama and Lava, and the problem with those is they're beautiful, but there is just so much difficulty with the fact that they might be using confidential data. We have moved to newer sets that we're keeping a bit confidential and close to the test right now. But like I said, we are moving closer and closer to having our own complete model. It's multifaceted. The one thing that I like about the tablet is it has a huge accessory market, right? You can find a lot of opportunities in how you implement and deploy it. Also, I want to say is that it's an easy form factor to use on a day-every-day, because we already use tablets. The idea of a tool being ergonomic and being able to work with you in a dynamic environment, you know, I can't just run back to my computer every time if I'm on a work site and I want to ask a question to a large language model. That would be really hard. So that is the form factor allows towards the functionality. As far as the back-end elements of making it localized, you can do that on a lot of different things. So the tablet is just what we're seeing as a consumer good. And we've worked with companies to create localized servers, localized server networks, where it's still remaining their proprietary system on a much more dynamic space. But we're not trying to, as like I said, the ChatGPT model, where we're all in on a giant server farm somewhere. The one thing that really is exciting to me personally is that with the tablet model, you can power that with just a solar panel, and they sell them on Amazon, right? It pushes a lot of the requirements of these large server hubs out and away. And I'm not going to say that that doesn't create their own logistical issues, but it has the virtue of resolving a lot of issues. Like, for example, I was told recently, or I saw an article recently, that every time you prompt ChatGPT, you use an equivalent of 100 milliliters of water. A lot of us prompt ChatGPT a lot. So we're seeing a huge sustainability crisis. In fact, Sam Altman has gone ahead forward saying we're going to need a huge increase in our infrastructure systems and electrical systems to support these server hubs. So I think in general, we're seeing that moving it closer to a person and having a more democratized farm not only could be the best way of protecting our privacy, it may be the only way we save our planet. So that's a whole nother discussion that I don't think we've really touched upon as a culture, is the sustainability of the AI model.
Hello.
Hey.
I have an entrepreneur question for you.
Excellent.
You mentioned you had identified 250-ish business models using AI.
Yeah.
So how has AI affected startup funding?
That's a wonderful question, and one that I feel actually the most qualified to answer. So first wave was, AI is great, let's all invest in it. And we did. I actually feel like people are getting bored of it. Like, you can only find 3,000 proposals for a new AI-generated Instagram before you just get saturated. You shouldn't feel pressure right now to say that my company is AI. It's just a tool. I don't feel pressure to use in my proposals that I use staplers or a computer. It's a tool. We expect to use that tool. What we want you to do is, are you taking a core idea in an innovative way? And are you using AI to expand your team dynamically to fill in a role and have a much larger footprint? Now, if you're showing that, people get very excited. One of the great example of this is microgrids, creating small-scale energy networks. That would normally be a huge and very laborious experience. But if you're thinking about this with the combination of artificial intelligence, we can start seeing more dynamics in how we use power. I've seen some really interesting business ideas come out of this. But the idea for any entrepreneur, and I do mean any entrepreneur, it starts with passion. If you are not excited about doing that every day for 90 hours, which ultimately with AI can bring it back to 35 hours, then you shouldn't do it. So I guess that would be my follow-on to that. Don't be afraid to pitch. In fact, I'm hoping we're gonna see more pitching with different company ideas, bringing a lot of uniqueness to this market.
Yeah, that's great. And we do have some ideas. And that, I was just wondering if it's so hard to model out scalability anyway. And in this new frontier of building the road as we're driving on it, how do we, make a solid pitch that you can actually perform?
Yeah. What I would say to you is the best thing that you can start with is a prompt library. And I think what was really interesting was the presentation before me is, don't think of these as one-off tools either, right? Find a good process flow with a good set of prompts that get a reasonable response rate that sends you in the right direction. And it's okay to take and copy a prompt from ChatGPT and send it into Claude. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and this is personal, but I've seen it, I find that Claude 2 writes a more persuasive proposal than ChatGPT. I can also tell you that Claude 2 is absolutely rubbish, anything engineering related. Understand your models, understand what they do well. So you make those tools work for you. Yeah. I want to say, everyone, this was a great audience.